Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to PyCon Japan 2019. I'm very excited to be here with you guys. So thank you so much for having me. This is actually my second time in Japan. I had the opportunity to come here last year, and so when I heard that I was going to be able to come back and have another visit to Japan, I was just incredibly excited because Japan is honestly my favorite country to visit. I absolutely love it here. So thank you guys so much for having me. My presentation is called Why Python is Eating the World, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the purpose of this talk is to share the 3 reasons why Python is eating the world and to explain why its growth is going to continue at a rapid rate. Then I'm also going to talk about what you can do to help that continue to happen. Okay, so you may be wondering why this is relevant to you right now. So more people want to learn how to code than ever before. And as Python advocates, it's really important for you to know why Python is eating the world so that you can evangelize for the Python community and help our community continue to grow. But I want to ask everyone here today a question. I want to ask that if, after listening to this presentation, you think that Python is going to continue to eat the world, that you will agree to help our community continue to grow. So hands up if you're willing to make that commitment. Awesome. Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. Okay, so right now you may be wondering, who are you? My name is Corey Altoff, and I'm the author of a book called The Selftaught Programmer, the definitive guide to programming professionally. It recently surpassed 100,000 copies sold worldwide, which was just super cool. Tech Digest named it as one of the top 5 computer and technology books in the world. Google included it in their list of top programming books, and Book Authority recently rated it as one of the top software design books of all time. So it's been published in 8 languages, including Japan. It's just been really amazing having the opportunity to help people around the world learn how to program and to introduce so many new people to the Python programming language. Of course, my book teaches Python. It's an introduction to programming. It covers a bunch of different things that you need to learn to program professionally, everything from the fundamentals of programming to object-oriented programming, how to pass a technical interview, what sort of tools you need to become a software developer. But of course, it teaches Python. So it's been the #1 book in the United States in Python for a few years now. And I'm also the creator of the Selftaught Programmers Facebook group, which is a really supportive community of 47,000 people that are all very interested in programming and passionate about programming and learning how to program outside of school. So there's a lot of Python enthusiasts in there. It's a really great community. Finally, I'm the founder of GoSelftaught.com, an online platform that teaches people how to program. Over 1,000 people have gone through my live training program that helps people program professionally. During the course of all this, from writing my book to doing these live training programs and doing the group, interacting with so many people, I've learned a lot about the best way to teach people how to program. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of that with you today, what the best way is to teach people how to program and why Python is a part of that. I want to share a couple stories with you guys of people from my communities that have made the journey from complete beginners to software engineers using Python and just like the impact that that has had on their lives. We have Victor, who's a member of the Selftaught Programmers Facebook group, and he started with absolutely no knowledge of how to program. He was a complete beginner. He did not study computer science in school at all, and he started by programming in HTML and CSS and JavaScript, going that route. It was very confusing to him, and it just didn't click for him. So we introduced him to Python, and now he's working at one of the major tech companies in the Bay Area doing Python development as a data scientist. We also have Dragon, who's another member of my group. Same thing, he didn't go to school for computer science, and he was really struggling. He wasn't sure what to do with his career, but he ended up learning Python, and he is also now a data scientist. Just one more example, we've got Rumyana, same story. She didn't study computer science, and she was actually working at a hotel in Las Vegas dealing cards. She was always really interested in tech, but she just didn't know how to get started, like how to become involved in tech. But it was always her dream to do that. And she ended up learning Python and is now doing freelance programming as a Python developer. So it's really changed her life, and I know Python has had a great impact on my career and my life, and these are just a couple of stories, but Python has had such a dramatic impact on a lot of people's lives, and it's been really cool being able to see how big of an impact it has had. So just a quick background on my story and how I discovered Python and became a software engineer without studying it in school. In college, I didn't do very well. I definitely partied way too much and didn't focus on my studies, unfortunately. Originally, I studied business, and I actually failed math in school and had to switch to political science to avoid the math requirements. So I definitely had a hard time in school. I did try to learn how to program while I was in school, but unfortunately, my professor started us off with Java, and I just was very, very lost. I couldn't understand it, and I found it very, very difficult. So I ended up withdrawing from that class. After I graduated, I was struggling to get a job. I just didn't have the skills that employers were looking for, and so it was really tough for me. And I ended up reading an article that sort of changed my life, and it was an article about a guy who had taught himself how to program outside of the university school system. So he didn't get a computer science degree. He taught himself completely on his own. In that article, he mentioned Python. And so I decided to give learning to program another chance, but this time using Python instead of Java. And I bought my first Python book, which was Think Python, which is a great book. And I wrote my first program. I still remember how amazing that felt. And I very quickly just fell in love with programming, fell in love with Python. I really enjoyed it. So a few months later, I ended up getting my first freelance programming job. And so I got paid for the first time as a Python programmer. And so I saw okay, wow, maybe I really can do this as a profession. So I ended up working remotely for a while as a freelance programmer. I left Silicon Valley, which is where I was born and where I was from, and I ended up taking off and traveling around the world, working remotely as a freelance Python developer. I ended up coding in 26 different countries, and I've had the opportunity to code from Thailand and Japan, Australia, Africa, and just around the world. So learning Python has just had a huge impact on my life, and it's definitely made my life a lot more exciting and led to a lot of adventures. After that, I ended up working as a software engineer at eBay. I might not have been qualified yet, but I got really lucky, and the person hiring me was a huge Python enthusiast. And he went to all the PyCons and was just super into Python. And literally the whole interview, there was a lot of questions he could have asked me that I would not have known the answer to, but we spent the entire interview talking about Python, which was super cool, and we ended up bonding over that, and that is how I got the job. It's from someone who mutually really loved Python. I worked on eBay Now, which was eBay's delivery service, using Python, working on the data pipeline, building web scrapers, all of that stuff. And then I got a job at a startup in the Bay Area called Thews. And sort of the same thing happened. The hiring manager that was doing all the hiring, once again, was super into Python. And that's all we talked about during the interview. And that helped me to get that job. That was super cool. And the crazy thing was that we were working in Silicon Valley out of a mansion with a pool and a basketball court. And it was insane because a few months earlier, I was unemployable. Employers wouldn't call me back. I couldn't get interviews. And then, just a short time later, after learning such a valuable skill, Python, I found myself literally living out the plot of Silicon Valley. I don't know if you've seen that show on HBO, but working out of a mansion in Silicon Valley. So it was really crazy. Learning the Python really helped my career. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing Python with other people and about programming and helping other people learn how to program, because Python has had just such a tremendous impact on my life. That's why I like to help other people learn how to program and to introduce them to Python. In this presentation, I'm going to be sharing with you guys 3 reasons why Python is eating the world. The first reason is beginner adoption. And I'm going to talk about why Python is the best programming language for education. Reason number 2 is company demand. So I'm going to talk about why demand for Python programmers by employers is going to continue to rise. And reason number 3 is community. So I'm going to be talking about why Python has a unique community that keeps developers around. Reason number 1 is beginner adoption. So Python is the best first programming language for beginners. As I said earlier, when I tried to learn Java in school, I just didn't understand anything that was happening. I found it very difficult to learn, and now I understand why, now that I teach programming. So the reason why Python is the best first programming language for beginners is because it's simple to understand. There's many different paths that you can take as a Python developer. Python developers get paid very well, and Python is great for freelancing. Most new programmers really struggle with what programming language to start with. I completely understand why. It's really intimidating. You know, you've got Python, JavaScript, Ruby, C, C++, Swift, PHP. I mean, it's a nightmare for beginners to even try to sort through all of that information and determine where the best place to start is. One problem is that the conventional wisdom and what's often taught in schools is to start with a low-level programming language like C or Java. And starting with Python over C or Java can actually make the difference between success and failure when you're learning how to program. And this is something that I see all the time when I'm teaching people how to program. And so if you ever need to convince someone who is learning how to program or show them why Python is so much better to start with than Java, what I usually do is just teach them to write their first program, right? I teach them HelloWorld, which of course is the traditional first program that you teach a new programmer. So I say, okay, let's go ahead and learn HelloWorld. And as many of you guys may know, this is how you write HelloWorld in Java. It's class, HelloWorld, bracket, public static void, main, paren, string args, bracket, 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 system.out.println, paren, HelloWorld, paren, bracket, semicolon, right? Like it's really complicated. It's pretty hard to explain. In order to explain how HelloWorld works in Java, I have to explain what a class is, and I don't even introduce that concept till halfway through my book. But HelloWorld, of course, in Python is one line of code. It's just print hello world. It's super simple. You can explain it in under 30 seconds. Beginners can intuitively understand it. It just makes sense. And put yourself back in the mind of a beginner. And for beginners, this is usually just mind-blowing because they don't know anything about programming. And when they see that you can print hello world in one statement versus class, hello world, public static void, main, like what is a public static void? What does that mean? Why are there so many things happening here? It's very overwhelming for beginners. So Python is much simpler to understand for a new programmer than Java. And that can make the difference between success and failure when you're learning a program. So of course, Guido Van Rossum agrees, and he says that he thinks that Python is much easier for new programmers to learn than Java or C or C++. And fortunately, this is starting to change. So as I said earlier, many universities in the United States start with Java, but it is starting to change. So Stanford recently just got rid of Java as their introductory to programming language. But it's important for us to help spread the word about this so that Python continues to grow as the first language for new programmers. Many people think that JavaScript is the best first programming language to teach to beginners. And I think JavaScript is a great language, but I don't think it's the best programming language for beginners. And I can explain that in one image, and that's JavaScript, the good parts. If you're not familiar, it's a book that highlights the good parts of JavaScript. But of course, if there has to be a book that highlights the good parts, then there's a lot of bad parts too. When I'm teaching new programmers, I don't want to have to explain to them why foo plus bar is funan. So that's why I think that Python is a better first programming language than JavaScript. The next thing is that there's many different paths that you can take as a Python developer. So you can go into data science, you can go into web development, you can go into mobile development, and you can pretty much go into any field. A lot of beginners worry too much when they're getting started about what programming path they're going to take. Like, are they going to go into app development or data science or web development? And it's actually really important to just focus on learning programming fundamentals first and not worry so much about what you're going to specialize in. And that's why Python is really great, is because you can go so many different paths. You can just tell beginners, you know what, just focus on learning the fundamentals and think about that stuff later. Python is really valuable, and you can go so many different directions with it. The third reason why Python is the best programming language for beginners is because Python developers get paid very well. The average salary in the US is $47,000, which is approximately 5 million JPY. Python developers in the United States get paid $123,000, which is 13.3 million JPY. So Python developers in the United States earn more than twice the average person with a college degree. So Python developers get paid really, really well. And in Japan, Python developers get paid really well too, and it's increasing really fast. So as you can see, this chart shows the salary of Python developers in Japan from 2016 to 2019, and as you can see, that is growing really fast. And that's very important when someone's learning to program, just to stay motivated. You know, money's not everything, but it does help to motivate people when they're learning, because it is a long process, to know that you are going to have a lucrative career once you're finished. The final reason that Python is the best programming language for beginners is because it's great for freelancing. So a freelance programmer is a person who does contract work for different companies. And I know there's a lot of people in the audience that are new programmers, and maybe you're thinking about learning to program professionally without a computer science degree. So I'm going to share with you the hack that I used to get hired at eBay without any prior experience and without a degree in computer science. And it was called climbing the freelance ladder. So I'm going to explain to you very quickly how to do that and why Python is the best programming language to do that with when you're getting started, okay? So I think personally that freelancing is the future. Whether you want to program professionally as a software engineer or freelance, I think freelancing is a great option as well. And actually, the majority of workers are going to be freelance by 2027. So there's a huge opportunity right now for freelance Python developers. And there's a bunch of benefits to being a freelancer. You can do it on the side or full time, and you get to be your own boss. You can work remotely and travel. You can no longer commute. And if you do want to work at a big tech company, I think that freelancing first is the best way to get there. The old way to program professionally without a degree was to get training and then to start applying for jobs. So maybe going to a boot camp and then applying for jobs after that. But there's two big problems when you take that route. And the first is experience, right? So you're applying for jobs, but you don't have any prior experience. And most tech companies would like you to have experience. There's only so many jobs that they can give out to people that have absolutely no experience. So that's the first problem. You don't have experience. The second problem is passing a technical interview, which is relatively difficult and a little bit challenging and takes some time. So this allows you to start programming professionally and avoid those two problems. And it's called climbing the freelance ladder. So the first step is to pick a freelance platform. So there's a bunch of different options. You've got Udemy, that's one of the platforms. You've got Fiverr, Freelancer, and there's a bunch of other platforms. So basically, these are platforms that allow you to go on and apply for small jobs that you then complete, and they're all review-based. So the first step to becoming a freelancer is once you've picked your platform, so say you want to go on Upwork, you then want to go ahead and get your first review. So find a friend or a family member that's willing to hire you for a very small project that needs help with something and complete a project for them, and then get a review. I hire out people on Upwork all the time, and I'm always really shocked at how many people apply for freelance jobs without a single review. So make sure to get a review, get a 5-star review, or get 2, okay? And then you can start applying for the jobs. You also want to take your platform's tests. So most of these platforms have tests that you can take, like Python tests that just show that you have the skills that you say you have. That's going to help you stand out on a freelance platform as well. Okay, and this is how Python fits in with all of this. I recommend for anyone who's a new programmer and you're seeking to make this journey, to start with Python and then learn how to build web scrapers. Because the thing is, if you want to become a freelance web developer, that's going to take a good amount of time. Like to get proficient enough with all the front-end frameworks and back-end frameworks and everything that you need to know to program professionally as a web developer takes a long time. And I'm not saying not to do that, but a good step to take before you do that is to start building web scrapers in Python, because they're really easy to build. Like you can go from a complete beginner to learning Python to building your first web scraper in a matter of weeks, whereas that wouldn't be possible with web development. You can't do it as fast. And then you can start building experience and getting paid as a freelancer, which is really cool. So I did a search yesterday for freelance jobs on Upwork, and there was over 1,000 web scraping jobs. And the really cool thing is that there are jobs that range from very cheap to more expensive. And that's what climbing the freelance ladder is all about, right? So as you can see here, this is a $25 job. And that's what I was talking about when I said you can avoid experience, because no one's going to ask for referrals from you when you're doing a $25 job on Upwork. And that's going to allow you to go from doing a $25 web scraping job to a $50 web scraping job to a $75 web scraping job to a $100 web scraping job. And that's climbing the freelance ladder. You're getting reviews and building credibility on these platforms, and at the same time getting very, very valuable experience, so that when you apply to a tech company, you don't just say like, hey, I'm a new programmer, I have absolutely no experience, please hire me. Like that's very less likely to work than if you say, look, this is my freelance portfolio of work that I've been doing, and I have a lot of experience actually creating programs and delivering projects on a deadline. So here's another example of a web scraping job just to show that this is a $750 project. You can get freelance projects starting from $25 to $750 to $1,000, and then there are also very long contracts, so anything from a month-long contract to a 6-month contract. So that's just a very good way to gain experience as a self-taught programmer, is by freelancing. So just one more quick tip, make sure to personalize your message when you're on these platforms. A lot of people I always hire on these platforms, and I can tell it's really obvious when you haven't actually read the job description. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And just make sure to give yourself a little bit of extra time if you're doing freelance work. The first project that I ever did, I had to pull an all-nighter because I didn't budget enough time to actually get it done. So I had to stay up all night coding, which wasn't too much fun, but I did end up getting it done. So give yourself a little bit of extra time. You can then earn different badges on the platform. So they have badges like top-rated badge, and that just shows that you're one of the best freelancers on the platform. And then you can list your experience on LinkedIn and start applying for jobs as a software engineer. So that is the exact path that I took climbing the freelance ladder. I did exactly what I just outlined to you guys today. I freelanced, I climbed my way up the freelance ladder. I then went ahead and put my job title on LinkedIn as a software engineer, a freelance software engineer, and that's how I got hired at eBay. So a recruiter from eBay actually reached out to me because of that experience that I was able to earn on a freelance platform. And see, so these are just some messages that I've gotten from recruiters thanks to actually using this message. And as you can see, they're most interested in my Python skills. Shannon from Facebook, this is all well before I wrote my book, reached out and said she was looking for Python rock stars. Ron from Pandora reached out to me and said he was looking for software engineers with Python experience. Matt from Tesla, same thing. We're looking for engineers with strong Python skills. And so that just shows you every single one of these recruiters, the one thing that they're interested in are my skills in Python. And so that just shows how in demand Python is right now, which is the second reason why Python is eating the world, is because there's an incredible demand for Python programmers right now. So we're going to take a quick look at why Python is growing so fast, and then we're going to take a look at whether it's going to continue to grow or not. So this chart shows the growth of the major programming languages, and Python, as you can see, is in red. So we've got Python, JavaScript, Java, all the major programming languages. And as you can see, Python is growing faster than any of them. Python is the fastest growing programming language right now. And according to the 2018 developer survey by Stack Overflow, Python was the most wanted programming language by employers in 2018. So it's an incredibly high demand. And it's becoming very popular in Japan as well. So this is a list of the programming languages with the highest paying jobs created by the job search engine jp.standby.com. And as you can see, Python is #1, beating out every other programming language in Japan. And the reason why there's so much demand for Python is because all of the top companies in the world use Python. Amazon, Nokia, IBM, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Reddit, Disney, Instagram, Mozilla, Yahoo, Quora, NASA, they all use Python. And the other reason is because of data science. Data science is on the rise. According to a new report from LinkedIn, data scientists are the #1 most promising job in America for 2019. And of course, data science and Python are really linked. So the skills employers most frequently mention in data science job postings are Python, R, and SQL, according to Glassdoor. And 9 out of 10 jobs examined required at least one of those skills. So if you're going to go into data science, you need to know Python. And so I just read a great book by Kai-Fu Lee called AI Superpowers. I definitely recommend reading it if you haven't yet. It's really amazing. And he had a quote in there that really blew my mind. He said that, "I predict within 15 years, artificial intelligence will technically be able to replace 40 to 50% of the jobs in the United States." And I'm sure it's a very similar situation in Japan. So can you imagine what the world is going to look like when half of the jobs are gone? It really is a new era that's being ushered in right now. And it's being ushered in by Python. These are some of the jobs that are not going to exist in 10 years. Uber drivers, truck drivers, librarians, telemarketers, waiters, data entry, tax collectors, loan officers. The list goes on and on. This is just one page of the jobs that are not going to be available. I literally couldn't fit them on my slides. There were so many. The world is changing really fast right now, and jobs are disappearing. And it's because of advances in data science, like deep learning. And Python, of course, is what is driving a lot of this innovation. When we take a look at whether or not it's going to continue to grow, I think with the future of data science, we can say pretty conclusively that it is. And this is another chart by Stack Overflow that just shows the projected growth of Python. And as you can see, it is going to continue to grow at a very rapid rate. It's definitely going to continue to grow. And the third reason why Python is eating the world is because it has the best community in the world. So it's because of you guys. So Python definitely has the best community in the world. It's full of evangelists that they spend their time promoting Python and helping the community thrive and grow and to spread the word about Python, which is what I really admire. So I just want to highlight a few really awesome members of the Python community. We've got people like Mike Grouchy, who is the host of the PyCoders weekly podcast. It's a really great podcast if you want to check it out. And it just keeps people up to date on the newest developments in Python. So people like him are what make this community so strong. We've got people like Julia Sequeira, who's the founder of PyBites. And that's another online community of people that are mastering Python through coding challenges. So, he's helping people around the world to learn Python and advocating for it. People like Marietta, who is a core Python developer. Python, of course, is an open source language, and people like her are what keep Python up to date and make it what it is today. So she's a huge inspiration. And Taka Yuki, who is a great Python author. I've heard he's written some really great books. And he's also a Sphinx contributor. So it's people like this that make our community so strong, people that spend their spare time contributing to open source projects, becoming core developers, that make Python so special. And people come for the demand because it's the best first programming language for beginners. because of all the stuff that I talked about earlier, but they stay for the community because Python has the best community in the world. Another reason that the community is so great is because of PyCon, which has really become a global phenomenon. So there's a PyCon conference in 42 different countries, which is just amazing. And it truly is a global community. So this map shows where Python developers are located throughout the world. And as you can see, we've got Python developers located everywhere throughout the world. It's just an awesome, diverse community. And it's also very diverse in terms of experience. So 22% of Python programmers have been programming for less than 1 year, but 22% of programmers have been programming for longer than 11 years. It's a really diverse community, people with different experience levels, people from different countries. And so here's what you guys can do to evangelize for the Python community and to get involved and to help the Python community continue to grow. So you can subscribe to Python Weekly. That is a weekly newsletter. It has curated news, articles. It just keeps you up to date with everything that is going on in the Python community. So you can subscribe to that at pythonweekly.com. That's one way to get involved. We've got PySlackers, which is a community of Python enthusiasts centered around an open Slack team. So that's really cool too. You might want to check it out. You can go to pyslackers.com to join that. Another thing that you can do is to advocate. So join online communities on Facebook, Reddit, wherever you want, and just help people know that Python is the best first language to start with. I always see people online, like on Reddit or Facebook, saying beginners should start with C, or you're not a real programmer unless you start programming in assembly, stuff like that. So I know that I never would have learned how to program if I had tried to start with C. So it's really important for you guys to get out there and just let people know, advocate for Python, and let beginners know why Python is the best first programming language to start with. And of course, my Facebook group, Selftaught Programmers, can always use new Python advocates. I'd also like to encourage you guys to start something. So start a blog or a podcast or a community or something else more creative that brings the Python community together in Japan and throughout the world. If one person today started something to help promote Python from this talk, that would be amazing. So I would love if you guys would consider starting something to advocate for Python. You can also, of course, become a Python core developer. Python core developers are the foundation of Python, so contribute to Python's code base as a core developer. And you can find out more about how to do that at devguide.python.org/coredev. You can also contribute or start a Python open source project. So the more open source projects we have, the more libraries, the more useful Python is to everybody else. So consider starting an open source project. And also consider helping a beginner. So I would love to encourage you guys, those of you that already know how to program, to help someone else learn how to program in Python. I don't know how it is in Japan, but in the United States, everywhere that I go, people want to learn how to program. Like everyone from my Uber drivers to anytime I get a haircut, everybody I want to meet wants to learn how to program. So consider helping a new programmer learn how to code and teaching them Python, because it can really change their life and have a huge impact on their career. So consider doing that as well. I just want to ask you guys, after hearing my presentation, how many of you guys agree that Python is going to continue to eat the world, and how many of you guys are willing to commit to helping the Python community continue to grow? So are you guys awesome? Thank you so much. That's awesome. That's great to hear. So that is my presentation. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I've got a blog, selftaught.blog. But thank you guys so much for listening. It was a privilege to be up here today and to have the chance to talk with you all. And I'm looking forward to the rest of PyCon and hearing all the speeches. So thank you guys so much.